Hey everybody, Spaniard here, keeping it tight from Black Sheep Bravo, and welcome back to another episode of the As If Philosophy, the series. Now today we're going to be diving into a more serious topic, and the question that I have for you today is, have you ever experienced a loss of a loved one? So that's the topic of today. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and how to cope and ways to get through it. So don't go away. It's going to be a great show. Stick around. I'll be right back. The As If Philosophy, the series, with your host, Anthony Choppa, the Spaniard. The views and commentary of the show are that of the host and doesn't reflect that of Black Sheep Bravo LLC. So are you ready for the show? Here is the Spaniard. All right, welcome back. This is the Spaniard from Black Sheep Bravo's The As If Philosophy, the series. Now, the question was posed, have you ever lost a loved one or ever experienced death? It's a very, very serious topic. It's sometimes it's hard to talk about, but today we're going to talk about that and how to cope, how to get through a difficult time such as death. So first thing we're going to talk about is loss. What is your definition of loss? You know, when we think about losing a loved one, we always say, people always tend to say, sorry for your loss. I mean, we're losing the person, you know, from existence. But we can't look at it as a loss forever. Okay, I know experienced death throughout my life, and it's never gets easy. But as long as we are able to tell ourselves, you know, define what loss means to me, and then do not let that grasp its claws in you, because then it could dwell. And that's where serious issues can start arriving as a side effect of grief, and that's depression. We will start to lose focus on our drives and our goals. And so that's not what we want to do. So as long as we can define what loss is to ourselves, let us know what that is. That's the first part. The second part is, now, how do you cope with that? Now, I personally have never experienced the loss of a close family member, but I have lost other family members and close friends. And it never gets easier dealing with that. You know how many wakes and funerals I have been to in my life, and each time it just doesn't get simpler or easier. It's always a work up to it, you know. So it never gets easier. However, this may help. Now, I've always been told that when we're dealing with death, it's a very delicate issue, and different people deal with death in certain ways. Others like to share the positive memories by dedicating, whether it's pictures, music, whatever, and doing more of a celebration of life rather than mourning a loss. And that's the other side of it. People want to mourn. One of the things that I've always came encounter with is, now we could look at death as one of two things. We could look at it as an end of an era or an end of an existence. And two, we could look at it as a new beginning, or a sign of us to turn the page in our own lives. So I'm going to look at the second part of it, that second option of, you know, what do we do from here on? We lost our loved one, so now what do we do from here, right? Time is really going to be the key factor here. It's going to take time. This is something that we as humans cannot just improvise, adapt, and overcome. It takes time. It's going to take a little bit of healing for this process to really take effect, and take as long as you need. However, give yourself an out, or give yourself a boundary to say, I'm going to give myself a week. Usually a typical good time is a week. I usually try to tell people, don't go beyond that, because then you start getting into bad patterns. So give yourself a deadline of giving yourself time to really grieve. And then the second part of that is now remembering to stay busy. And what I mean by staying busy doesn't necessarily mean get yourself in a frenzy where you're constantly moving. I'm talking of filling your time constructively whether it's going for a walk, using exercise as an example, walking, bicycling. I know it's kind of still kind of cold here in the Midwest, and being outside can be a little challenging, but there's different ways, Take up a hobby. This is the time to really dig deep into yourself to find out, what have I done for me to encourage my path to living a fruitful and exemplary life. Use this time constructively. And the second part of that really is, a lot of people get stuck on that memory of that person. Just because that person has passed on doesn't mean that you have to go with. Okay, I know it sounds a little deep, but hear me out on this one. When someone leaves, right? When someone leaves us through death, we go through the grieving process, and we could sit on that for a while, and we could let days turn into weeks if we don't check that. And then before you know it, we are gone too. All right, we have left with them. And that's the trap that we don't want to get trapped into, is let them go. You have your life to live, and others depend on you as well. So use this time to not only reflect on the memory, but reflect on what you want in life. This is the perfect time to start re-evaluating your goals in life. Whether you want to take up a new hobby, try new foods, visit new places, this is the time to experiment and try. Because again, I'm not going to say the same cliche of, life's too short, because it really is. We could go back and forth and talk about the whole philosophical questions of what is life. But when it all comes down to it, we only have a short amount of time. So let's make the best of it, shall we? So there you have it, folks. The difficult topic of death. It's never easy. But I want to hear from you. Share your comments with me by listing them below. And if you've dealt with death in your life, I'd like to hear from you. How did you cope with that? What did you do to get through? Perhaps others may learn from that and share that experience in their time of loss. So there you have it. Another episode next week. We're going to be talking about frustration. All right, frustration and how it could really throw a wrench in our lives. And so we're going to talk about how to deal with frustration. So thanks again for listening. This is the Spaniard here from the As If Philosophy of the series. Don't forget to check out our other shows on our Black Sheep Bravo. Make sure you tune in for other events and notifications and all that good stuff. So anyway, this is the Spaniard. Have a great day. Spaniard.